Walk into any car dealership on a Saturday afternoon and pay attention to who is buying what. The person stretching to afford the brand new BMW on a 5-year finance plan, the one who negotiated the monthly payment down by $40 and felt like they won, is almost certainly not wealthy. And the person who walked past the BMW, sat down with a used 3-year-old Toyota, and wrote a check that person very possibly is. This is not a coincidence. This is not about preference or taste or what someone can and cannot afford. This is about a completely different philosophy of what money is for, what ownership means, and what the relationship between spending and building wealth actually looks like from the inside. Rich people and everyone else are not just buying different things. They are operating from fundamentally different mental frameworks about every financial decision they make. And once you understand those frameworks, once you can see the specific logic that runs underneath the choices, your entire perspective on your own spending shifts in a way that cannot be undone. My name is Mike, and I have spent more time than most people would consider reasonable studying the actual spending behavior of wealthy people versus the spending behavior of people who are financially stuck, not to judge either group, but because the differences are so specific, so consistent, and so profoundly illuminating that I became convinced they contain the closest thing to a real map of how wealth gets built and how it gets prevented. And what I found is that the gap is almost never about the big obvious things. It is rarely about yachts or private jets or extravagances that only a handful of people in the world can access. The gap is in the everyday, the recurring, the quiet, habitual, automatic purchases that most people never examine because they feel too small to matter. Those are where the real divergence lives. And today we are going to go through it systematically and honestly, because I think what you are about to hear is going to make you look at your own spending with completely different eyes. Let's start with the most foundational difference, the one that everything else flows from: poor people. And I am using that term not as a judgment, but as a shorthand for people who are not building wealth regardless of their income level buy things. Rich people buy assets. That sounds simple. It is not, because the distinction between a thing and an asset is not always obvious from the outside, and the culture we live in is specifically and deliberately designed to blur that line as much as possible. A new television is a thing. It delivers entertainment and then depreciates to near zero. A piece of rental property is an asset. It delivers income and appreciation over time. A designer handbag is a thing. A stake in the company that makes the designer handbag is an asset. A new car bought on finance is a liability dressed up as a thing. The same car bought used with cash, used for 5 years, and replaced only when necessary, that is a decision that freed up capital to become an asset somewhere else. The wealthy do not avoid spending. They are ferociously protective about the category of thing they spend on. And the single most consistent characteristic of their spending is that they prioritize acquiring things that generate returns over things that simply get consumed. Now, here is where it gets more nuanced and more interesting, because the thing versus asset distinction sounds straightforward until you realize how many things are marketed to ordinary people as investments when they are actually pure consumption. The expensive gym membership that signals health but gets used twice a month. The professional wardrobe that costs 10 times what a functional professional wardrobe needs to cost because of the brand on the label. The latest smartphone upgrade purchased the moment it is available because owning the newest technology has become a social expectation. The home renovation done not to increase property value, but to impress guests. Every single one of these purchases was probably framed, internally or externally, as a reasonable, even smart decision, but none of them generate a return. They consume capital. And the wealthy who have absorbed the asset mindset so deeply it operates below the level of conscious thought almost never make these purchases at the scale or frequency that financially stuck people do, not because they cannot afford them, because they have already run the mental calculation and decided that the consumption cost is not worth the opportunity cost of capital that could be deployed elsewhere. Let me talk about debt next, because the difference in how wealthy people and everyone else relate to debt is one of the most revealing financial divergences there is. The average financially struggling person uses debt to buy things that depreciate: cars, electronics, furniture, vacations, clothes. The debt funds consumption. And consumption debt is uniquely destructive because the thing being financed is losing value at the same time the interest is accumulating. You are going backwards on two fronts simultaneously. Wealthy people, when they use debt at all, and the genuinely wealthy do use debt, strategically and deliberately use it to buy things that appreciate or generate income. Real estate financed with a mortgage. A business acquisition financed with a commercial loan. Capital deployed into an investment that produces a return exceeding the cost of the borrowing. The debt is a tool pointed at something that grows. And here is the critical insight. The wealthy are not more disciplined about avoiding debt. They are more disciplined about the direction debt points. Consumer debt pointed at a depreciating thing is a guaranteed wealth drain. Strategic debt pointed at an appreciating or income-producing asset is a potential wealth accelerator. Same instrument, completely different financial outcome depending entirely on what it was used to acquire. Here is one that I do not think gets enough attention, and it should, because it affects almost every financial decision a person makes across their entire life. Rich people and everyone else have fundamentally different relationships with time. Specifically, with the future. Most people, when they make a financial decision, are primarily optimizing for how it feels right now. The purchase delivers satisfaction in the present. The cost, the interest, the depreciation, the opportunity cost of the capital is absorbed by the future self, who feels more abstract and distant, and honestly less real than the present one. Wealthy people have internalized the future self as something they take seriously. Not in a sacrificing the present way, the caricature of the miser who never enjoys anything is not what this looks like in practice, but in a this decision will be evaluated later way. They ask what the future version of themselves will think about the choice being made right now. And because they have trained themselves to take that future perspective seriously, they make different choices in the present. They buy the experience that genuinely enriches their life rather than the status symbol that signals a life they have not built yet. They invest in their health because a healthy future self is a more productive, more free, more able future self, not because the gym is cheaper than the hospital, though it is. They build skills and knowledge rather than collecting things, because skills compound and things depreciate. The time orientation is simply different, and it produces different outcomes across every category of spending imaginable. Here is a way to feel this difference rather than just understand it intellectually. Next time you are about to make a significant discretionary purchase, ask yourself one question. Will the future version of me 5 years from now, 10 years from now, be glad this money went here? Not will they understand it. Not will they forgive it. Will they genuinely be glad? That question, answered honestly, filters out an enormous amount of spending that feels justified in the moment but serves nobody in the long run. The wealthy have essentially internalized this question until it runs automatically. Most people never ask it at all. That gap between asking the question and not is responsible for more of the wealth divide than any income difference. Now let me talk about something that is almost never discussed in this conversation, but that I think is one of the most practically important divergences between wealthy and non-wealthy spending patterns. Rich people are obsessed with quality over quantity in a very specific and financially consequential way. Not the conspicuous quality of luxury brands that is mostly wealthy signaling, not wealthy behavior. I mean the genuine quality of buying things that last, that work exceptionally well, that do not need to be replaced. The wealthy person who buys one pair of high-quality shoes that will last a decade is spending more upfront and dramatically less over time than the person who buys 3 pairs of cheap shoes a year. The cost per wear, cost per use, cost per year, these are the calculations wealthy people make instinctively, while most consumers never make them at all. And over an entire lifestyle of purchases, this difference is not trivial. Buying cheap things that break and need to be replaced is one of the most expensive habits a person can have. It generates a constant stream of replacement spending, while the wealthy person who bought well once has redirected that ongoing expenditure into something that compounds. This is not about being able to afford quality. It is about understanding that quality is almost always cheaper than quantity when measured over the full lifespan of the purchase. And there is a deeper version of this principle that goes beyond physical objects. Rich people apply the same quality over quantity logic to their time, their relationships, and their commitments. They say no to 100 mediocre opportunities to stay available for one exceptional one. They invest deeply in a small number of genuinely valuable relationships rather than maintaining a large network of shallow ones. They pursue mastery in a focused area rather than spreading effort thin across many. The same mental framework that makes them buy one great thing instead of five cheap things makes them live with intention rather than accumulation. The philosophy is consistent. The application is everywhere. I want to go somewhere specific now that I think will be uncomfortable for some people and necessary for everyone. The thing that poor people most consistently spend money on that wealthy people almost never do, at least not at the same scale, is the performance of success. The clothes, the car, the apartment, the restaurant, the vacation, the watch, all purchased at least partly to communicate a financial status to an audience that is either not paying attention or cannot afford to care. And every dollar spent on that performance is a dollar that is not compounding into the actual thing being performed. I want to be direct about this. Spending money to look successful while not yet being successful is not just financially costly, it is mathematically self-defeating. Because the money being spent on the performance is the exact money that would have produced the reality. You are consuming your future to fund an image of a present that does not quite exist yet. And the brutal arithmetic of this is that the gap between the image and the reality tends to grow over time, not shrink. Because the performance requires ongoing funding, while the reality requires ongoing building. And you cannot do both at full scale simultaneously with a limited income. Wealthy people, and I mean people who built wealth rather than inherited it, because the behavioral patterns are more instructive, almost universally describe a period in their financial lives where they consciously decoupled their spending from external validation, where they made a private decision that their financial scorecard was the number in the account, not the car in the driveway. This is not a trivial psychological shift. For most people, the social function of spending is deeply embedded and genuinely important. We are social animals. Status matters. Recognition matters. The desire to be seen as successful is not vanity, it is a fundamental human need. But there are ways to meet that need that do not consume your financial future. And the wealthy tend to find them. Achievement in work. Mastery of a skill. Genuine contribution to something that matters. Relationships built on something more durable than lifestyle compatibility. The internal sense of building something real that nobody else can see yet. These things feed the status need without the price tag, and freeing up the capital that was going into the performance allows the reality to actually be built. Let me get into some specifics that I think will make this feel concrete and real rather than abstract. Rich people do not buy lottery tickets, not because they are above gambling, but because they understand expected value, and the lottery is a tax on people who have not been taught to calculate it. Rich people do not buy extended warranties on electronics, because the expected cost of the repair the warranty covers is almost always less than the premium paid for it. The warranty is a profit center for the retailer, not a protection for the consumer. Rich people do not lease cars unless there is a specific tax or business reason to do so, because leasing is structurally designed to maximize the amount of money you spend while minimizing the asset you end up with. Rich people do not carry credit card balances at 20% interest rates while simultaneously earning 2% in a savings account, because that spread is a $20,000 annual mistake on a $100,000 balance. These are not sophisticated insights. They are basic financial literacy applied consistently. But consistently is the key word. Because the financially stuck person makes each of these decisions once, and it does not feel catastrophic. The wealthy person refuses each of them always, and the cumulative effect of that refusal over decades is enormous. And there is one more in this category that I think deserves its own moment. Rich people do not pay for convenience at a premium when the inconvenience is minor. The delivery fee on a meal that would take 15 minutes to prepare. The airport lounge upgrade charged to a credit card that costs more annually than the lounge is worth. The subscription that automates something that takes 4 minutes manually. Each of these is a small transfer of your capital to someone else's pocket in exchange for saving almost no meaningful time. Multiplied across a year, across a decade, these micro-convenience costs are worth thousands of dollars, all of it quietly redirected away from anything that compounds. There is also a critically underappreciated difference in how wealthy and non-wealthy people spend on education and self-improvement. The financially struggling person tends to treat learning as something that ended with formal education, a cost they paid once and finished. The wealthy person treats learning as the highest returning investment available to them at almost any stage of life. A book that takes 5 hours to read and costs $15, but that shifts how they think about a business problem, negotiate a deal, or invest capital. That book has an infinite return on investment. A course that costs $1,000 but teaches a skill that produces $10,000 of additional annual income pays for itself in 5 weeks and then compounds forever. The wealthy are voracious consumers of knowledge not because they are intellectually superior, but because they have correctly identified that their ability to think, decide, and act is their most valuable asset, and like all assets, it compounds when invested in and depreciates when neglected. Meanwhile, the same person who would not spend $50 on a book will spend $500 on a night out without a second thought. This is not a judgment, it is a pattern, and it reveals the underlying philosophy about what spending is actually for. Here is what I want to leave you with, and I want it to land not as a lecture, but as a genuine reorientation. The difference between what rich people buy and what everyone else buys is not fundamentally about the objects. It is about the framework that generates the purchase decision. It is about asking whether this thing produces or consumes, whether it builds or performs, whether the future self will thank or resent the present self for this choice, whether the capital going into this is working for you or against you. Those questions, asked consistently and answered honestly, change everything that comes out of your wallet. You do not need to be rich to think like this. You need to think like this to eventually be rich. And the extraordinary, genuinely hopeful thing is that the framework is completely free. It costs nothing to adopt. It just requires that you start asking different questions before you spend, and that you take the answers seriously even when they are inconvenient. The scoreboard that matters is not visible to anyone but you. Build something on it worth seeing. If this hit the way I hope it did, if something shifted in how you see your own spending decisions, then subscribe right now. I make these conversations every week. Sharp, honest, no filler, just the real mechanics of how money actually works and how thinking changes everything. Hit subscribe and stay in it. And if you want to see exactly what happens when the performance of wealth starts quietly destroying the possibility of real wealth, when looking rich becomes the thing that prevents actually becoming rich, the next video is going to hit even harder. We are going into the hidden cost of looking rich. The car payment math, the apartment trap, the social media comparison machine, the hedonic treadmill, all of it laid bare with the numbers attached. It is right there on your screen. Click it now. I will see you in the next one.